Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into the intense world of martial God Asura. If you're a fan of epic battles, martial arts, and a protagonist who rises from nothing to dominate, this is a story you don't want to miss. We'll be exploring its thrilling plot, powerful characters, and what makes it stand out in the world of cultivation novels. So sit back, grab your favorite snack, and let's enter the world of Azure. Chapter 66, Cultivation Formation. Cultivation Formation, the place that core disciples cultivate martial skills. Of course, Chu Feng had heard of the cultivation formation before. It was a cultivation treatment that only core disciples of the Azure Dragon School could enjoy. After entering it, pressure would increase by several times. But, no matter if it was cultivating martial skills or training the body and soul, a better effect would be gained. That's right. Right now, the cultivation formation is no longer only enjoyed by core disciples. The inner court disciples can as well. Today, the cultivation formation officially opens, so we want to go to the martial skill building to check it out and experience it. Chu Yu smiled and said. So there was something like that. Chu Feng hidden rejoiced. He had the Imperial Sky technique and he was fretting on where to cultivate it. But, he never would have thought that at this time, the cultivation formation would be opened to inner court disciples. It was just like it was prepared for him. The three of them walked together towards the martial skill building. On the road, Chu Feng used his spirit power and he discovered that Chu Yu was still stuck at the 4th level of the spirit realm. She was still unable to break through into the 5th level. Chu Yu, you still haven't broke through? Chu Feng asked. Yeah, for some reason, I seem to be unable to break through. Perhaps my perception is not too great. On that topic, Chu Yu's face was a bit ugly. Chu Yu, refine these and you will certainly be able to break through. Chu Feng stuck his hand into the cosmos sack and took out 2 spiritual beads. This is, seeing the spiritual beads in Chu Feng's hands, Chu Yu and Chu Shui both widened their mouths and their eyes revealed surprise. Although it was the first time that they saw it, from the spiritual energy that rushed towards them, they guessed that it was likely the top-quality medicine, the spiritual bead. These are spiritual beads. After swallowing, it gets converted into spiritual energy and it maximizes absorption. Chu Feng held Chu Yu's little hands and put the spiritual beads within them. Chu Feng, this is too precious. I can't take it. You're only at the 6th level of the spirit realm today, so it still has uses for you. You should still keep it to yourself. Chu Yu's first reaction was to refuse it. She knew the price of spiritual beads. Naturally, she did not feel comfortable accepting such precious items, and it was even 2 beads. If I give it to you, you should take it. I still have more, and if you don't take it, then it means you look down on me. Chu Feng forcefully stuffed the 2 spiritual beads into Chu Yu's waist purse. Chu Feng, this. Chu Yu didn't know what to do, but deep within her heart, she really wanted to accept it. Spiritual beads. It would absolutely help her break through to the 5th level of the spirit realm. There would even be a large amount of spiritual energy residue left in her body. It was way too helpful towards her cultivation. Not only that, there were even 2 beads. If it wasn't for Chu Feng, she would really not know when she could enjoy the use of such things. At least her father never even used a spiritual bead in his life. You could pay me back in the future if you wish. Chu Feng was afraid that Chu Yu would have a burden in her heart, so he started a joke. Millimeter. The Chu Yu who was usually lively nodded extremely seriously. Facing Chu Yu like that, Chu Feng was a bit helpless. But, it was understandable because if other people gave him things that were too precious, he would have burdens in his heart as well. But just at that time, Chu Feng discovered that Chu Shui's face was a bit off. The girl was pursing her lips and her big eyes were restlessly flickering. That expression was called admiration with 1 word, high admiration with 2 words, very extreme admiration with 3 words. Anyway, it could be said that she was broken by admiration towards Chu Yu. Chu Shui, it has been so many years. As your elder brother, I haven't really given you much, so take this spiritual bead as your first present from your brother. Chu Feng took out another spiritual bead and gave it to Chu Shui. This. Enough of this and that, I give it to you, so take it or else you would be looking down on me. Chu Feng, thank you. Chu Shui happily took the spiritual bead as if she was crazy, and a smile opened on her white face. After lovingly holding it for a while, she took out a handkerchief and covered it before carefully putting it in her waist purse. Chu Feng, your sack seems pretty special, is it? Just at that time, Chu Yu suddenly discovered that the thing on Chu Feng's waist was a bit special. This is the cosmos sack given to me by Su Mai. Chu Feng chuckled and walked in front. As for Chu Yu and Chu Shui, they were blankly staring while standing where they were. Surprise was filled on their faces, and looking at the young man in front of them, they started to have the same feelings. It was that they felt that the distance between them and Chu Feng became farther and farther apart. Although Chu Feng treated them better and better, their position and status were no longer on the same level, and it was as if they were people from two different worlds. The three of them chatted and laughed along the road, and they quickly arrived at the martial skill building. Only then did they find out that it was already overcrowded outside of the building. There were layers after layers of people surrounding the building. Chu Feng led the way and pushed aside the crowd with Chu Yu and Chu Shui. That stirred up a lot of grumbles, but when they turned around and saw the Wings Alliance badge on Chu Feng's chest, no one dared to even say half a word of complaint, and they even took the initiative to make way for Chu Feng. After passing through the walls of people, Chu Feng finally knew what they were observing. At the entrance of the martial skill building, there was an extra tall stone stage. On top of the stone stage was an elder, and behind the elder was a strange house. The house was very special yet strange. It was entirely dark green like a jade, but the strange thing was that it could block Chu Feng's spirit power. So, that would certainly be the so-called cultivation formation. After hearing the discussions from the people around him, Chu Feng understood it a bit more. There was only one cultivation formation, and every time only one person could be in there. If they wanted to cultivate within the formation, they must pay a saint spirit grass. Because of such an expensive price, there was not a single person that was willing to go within the many people in the observing crowd. After all, for many people, one saint spirit grass was already a huge price. There was pretty much no one that was willing to give it for a chance to cultivate. But, to Chu Feng, it couldn't be any better. Move, move. But just as Chu Feng walked near the stage, yells came from the crowd behind him. Turning his head to look, he saw a group of people entering. It was the people from the Sword Alliance, and Jian Chen, who had past conflicts with Chu Feng, was also within them. But the person that attracted Chu Feng's gaze the most was the large young person next to Jian Chen. That person had an extremely similar appearance to Jian Chen. But the aura on his body already reached the 9th level of the spirit realm. Strength like that wasn't even reached by many core disciples. When he saw people looking at him with fear and respect, Chu Feng didn't even need to think to know who he was. Without a doubt, he was Jian Chen's elder brother, the master of the Sword Alliance, Jian Fengyi. It's you. Just at that time, Jian Chen also recognized Chu Feng. You know him? Jian Fengyi tilted his head and asked. Brother, he's the person that attacked me that day. Jian Chen started to angrily bellow. Oh! Hearing those words, Jian Fengyi cast his gaze again towards Chu Feng. But, at that moment, there was already dense killing intent within his gaze. Chapter 67, Supporter. Whoosh suddenly, Jian Fengyi's body flashed and he disappeared like a ghost. When he reappeared, he already arrived in front of Chu Feng. A strong punch constantly got bigger in front of Chu Feng's eyes. He did not care where he was and he directly attacked. But, he underestimated Chu Feng. He thought that his punch would hit and defeat Chu Feng, but he did not know that his punch was powerless in Chu Feng's eyes. The corner of Chu Feng's mouth slightly curved up. He stepped forward, his shoulders slightly shook, his right arm suddenly extended and he punched out as well. The two fists collided in the air. The fast speed and strong power even rustled the air as if burning the air. Stop! But just as the two fists were going to collide, a body suddenly appeared in front of the two people and two strong palms tightly grasped Chu Feng and Jian Fengyi's wrist, forcefully stopping the two attacks. Origin realm? The power from the wrist lit up Chu Feng's eyes. He raised his head and looked. It was the martial skill building elder on the stage before. But, at that moment, the elder was also looking at Chu Feng. Within his eyes, there was a bit of astonishment. From the two fists, he could obviously feel that Chu Feng's power was stronger than Jian Fengyi's. Yet, Chu Feng only had the aura of the 7th level of the spirit realm, whereas Jian Fengyi had the aura of the 9th level. What is happening? Why do I feel fluctuations in spiritual energy? Just at that time, an aged voice came from the direction of the martial skill building. An old man with black hair walked out, and it seemed like it was another elder from the martial skill building. His position seemed to be higher than the middle-aged elder in front of him. Elder Wang, these two disciples were going to exchange blows here. Seeing that, the middle-aged elder went up to report. Oh! The elder looked at Jian Fengyi at first, then strictly scolded Chu Feng. Why did you attack here? Do you not know where this place is? Do you even have the rules of the school in your eyes? Elder, did you not see that he attacked me first? I was only defending. Was that wrong in any way? Chu Feng felt aggrieved. Hearing those words, Elder Wang also frowned. He never would have thought a disciple dared to talk to him in such a manner. But even so, he still looked at Jian Fengyi and asked with an extremely gentle tone, Fengyi, did you attack first? At that instant, Jian Fengyi was at a loss of words. He was indeed in the wrong. After all, countless pairs of eyes saw the scene just now. Okay, just pay attention next time. As a representative character within the inner court disciples, remember to pay attention to your influences, okay? I understand. Millimeter, you never come to the martial skill building. What are you here for today? Elder Wang, I came here today to have a feel for the mysteriousness of this cultivation formation. You're going to become a core disciple in a few days, yet you still want to have a feel here. But it won't have any harm. Since you came, go ahead. Elder Wang smiled and waved his hand. Thank you, Elder. Jian Fengyi did not delay and took out a Saint Spirit grass from his cosmos sack. He respectfully gave it to the middle-aged elder and walked towards the stage. However, when he walked next to Chu Feng, he said in a voice that only Chu Feng could hear, Boy, can't you tell that I have supporters in this inner court? Also, don't think that you'll be safe and sound after joining the Wings Alliance. Since you dared to attack my brother, even the heavens can't protect you. After saying those words, Jian Fengyi waved his big sleeve, stepped forward in huge strides and climbed up the tall stage. At that instant, Chu Feng's face turned a bit ugly. He said with dissatisfaction towards Elder Wang, I clearly arrived here before him. Why did you let him go first? The so-called the able takes priority. Jian Fengyi is one of the outstanding disciples of the inner court. Naturally, he has priority in the cultivating resources within the inner court. The elder said that unhurriedly, but traces of anger were jumping in his eyes. Obviously, being contradicted by Chu Feng again, he felt displeased. How do you know I'm not more outstanding than him? Chu Feng did not let the topic go. Haha, you're more outstanding? A mere disciple of the 7th level dares to call himself outstanding? How arrogant. How did such a disciple appear in the Azure Dragon School? Elder Wang's tone became more and more icy. Whether I am outstanding or not cannot be judged by you. At the end, you are only an inner court elder. You have no right to judge a person's qualifications. Chu Feng saw that the elder had connections with Jian Fengyi, so his attitude also became more rude. What an arrogant boy. You dare to talk to me like that? Elder Wang grinded his teeth and said, As an elder, you treat things unjustly. How are you qualified for my respect? Chu Feng disdainfully curled his lips. Impudent. If I don't teach you a lesson today, you would really think none of the all laws of the world apply to you. Finally, the elder could not take any more of Chu Feng's arguments. He waved his big sleeve and a strong palm headed towards Chu Feng. 3rd level of the origin realm? At that instant, Chu Feng couldn't help but be shocked. He never would have thought that the elder would have the cultivation of the 3rd level. If it was the 1st level of the origin realm, Chu Feng could still face it. But if it was the 3rd level, Chu Feng would not have much luck. Asterisk bang asterisk. Ah! But just as Chu Feng thought disaster was going to strike, the elder Wang yelled in surprise and backed away a few steps. It was as if he felt a huge blow, and when he stabled his steps, his face became abnormally pale. Elder Wang, It doesn't seem to be too appropriate to attack disciples like that, right? At that instant, people noticed that there was a white-haired elder that appeared next to Chu Feng. Chu Feng also recognized that person. It was the person that registered for him, an elder of the martial skill building, Elder Ouyang. But he also would not have thought that the elder's strength would be that strong. Not to mention that he arrived next to him completely silently, he didn't even feel the strike just now. But he knew that the aura of the old man was extremely thick. It was far above Elder Wang's. "My Lord Manager, we pay our respects." Seeing Elder Ouyang, Elder Wang and the middle-aged elder greatly changed their expressions and immediately became respectful. "Manager? He's the manager of the martial skill building?" Chu Feng suddenly understood and looked at the old man next to him with a bit of shock. How did this boy get to know Elder Ouyang? At that instant, Jian Fengyi, who was already on the stage, also frowned. From his family, he had some connections with Elder Wang. That was why he could step onto the stage. But he never would have thought that Chu Feng would know the manager of the martial skill building. It seemed that the relationship between the two was quite good, or why else would Ouyang personally come out for Chu Feng? At that instant, Jian Fengyi felt that the situation was not heading towards a good direction. I won't look too much into what just happened. However, in my martial skill building, there is the rule of first come first serve. Chu Feng, you go up. No need to pay the Saint Spirit grass. Ouyang didn't waste any words and he waved his hand, indicating Chu Feng to go up. Thank you, Elder. Chu Feng gratefully bowed to Ouyang, and under the gazes of the crowd, he walked on the tall stage. But, when he arrived next to Jian Fengyi, Chu Feng couldn't help but stop. He smiled and said, "It seems that your supporter in the inner court is only SOSO. Also, not only do I dare to attack your brother, I will even dare to attack you. You better not let me meet you again or else you'll have to face the consequences." Chapter 68, A Burst of Lingering Fear. What? You have nothing to say? That's right. You better quiet down for me or else I'm afraid that the next time we meet, I might accidentally hit you to death. Ha ha. Looking at the Jian Fengyi, who was pale-faced and fiercely glaring yet not even daring to fart, Chu Feng laughed, elegantly walked onto the stage and entered the dark green house. As for Jian Fengyi, he was clenching both of his fists as they made sounds. The flames in his heart were as if they was going to explode at any moment. As the Alliance Master of the Sword Alliance, he was one of the most eye-catching disciples in the inner court. When had he ever been provoked like this before? Even the Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance never treated him like that. But in his eyes, he could only endure even if he got more angry. He did not dare to attack in this martial skill building and he did not dare to attack in front of Ouyang. After all, even core disciples were respectful to Ouyang, say nothing of him. Who is that guy? He dared to speak to Jian Fengyi like that. Does he not want to live? Looking at that scene, some people worried for Chu Feng. I recognize him. He's Chu Feng. A few days ago, he annihilated the Liu Alliance all by himself. He's also the person that destroyed Liu Mang's groin. I'll tell you this. Never, ever, offend him. Compared to Jian Fengyi, Chu Feng is way more dangerous and way more terrifying. He is not afraid of anything and when he attacks, he is extremely ruthless. He's just like a devil. But some people recognized Chu Feng. Especially to those who personally saw Chu Feng destroy the Liu Alliance, when they thought of the scene that day, they shivered even though it was not cold. Deep within their hearts, a shadow of fear was already marked by Chu Feng. However, compared to others, the ones with the most complex expressions were Chu Yu and Chu Shui. As part of the Chu family, they deeply understood Chu Feng's past. They were clear that the boy who was always bullied by the Chu family became an idol of every Chu family young generation. He arrived at a point in which they could only raise their heads to look as he would walk further and further away. Just as the inner court disciples kept on discussing about Chu Feng, he already stepped into the so-called cultivation formation. What a mysterious formation. It should be the work of that world spiritist, right? At that moment, around Chu Feng was not the room of a simple house. It was a different world. Under his feet was a muddy swamp, above his head were black clouds and lighting, all around him were howling gales and storms, Next to his ears were the rumbling of thunder. Even the him that had spirit power knew that everything was false and only an illusion. Looking with the naked eye, everything was as if it was true. The most important thing was being in that area. It did indeed make Chu Feng feel strong pressure. He didn't even need to do anything. Just by standing there, the pressure increased by several times. Perhaps the weaker people had no way of waiting here even if they didn't move, let alone cultivating any martial skills. However, an environment like that was exactly what Chu Feng needed. He really enjoyed being in the environment that was filled with pressure. Only then could he become stronger and it would be more convenient for his cultivation. Chu Feng slowly closed his eyes and started to organize the information about the Imperial Sky Technique in his brain. Rank 7 Bodily Martial Skill, the Imperial Sky Technique. Divided into 4 big sections. For the early stage, creating wind under one's feet and running would be as fast as flying. For the middle stage, creating lightning under one's feet and running would be as fast as lightning. For the late stage, creating light under one's feet and running would be as fast as a flash. After mastering, nothing may live under one's feet but one's feet can step on the air, resist the air to walk and travel towards the horizon. Although the descriptions were simple, just with the mark of rank 7 told Chu Feng that the difficulty of cultivating the bodily martial skill was extremely high. After all, in the Azure Dragon School, the best martial skills did not pass rank 5. However, the harder the difficulty of the martial skill, the more Chu Feng wanted to cultivate it. Elder Wang, you won't blame me for making a move on you just now, right? Within the martial skill building, Elder Ouyang was chatting with Elder Wang. No need to worry about that. It was thoughtlessness on my part, so how can I blame you? Although Elder Wang said those words with his mouth, he did not think that in his brain. Before the large crowd, he was forced back by Ouyang. Although he was not injured, as an elder he still felt that his face was completely gone. The reason why I stopped you from making things difficult for Chu Feng was because I was thinking for you. After all, we are from the same generation. I did not want to see you offend a talented person that has quite a future. Ouyang smiled and said, "What do you mean? Does Chu Feng have some sort of background?" At that instant, Elder Wang finally understood that something was off. He doesn't have a background, but he quite impressive by himself. Himself? Chu Feng is just another boy who has hair. I don't see which part of him is outstanding. Ah, he has the spirit power, so is that not enough? What? He? Hearing those words, Elder Wang's face couldn't help but change. He finally knew why Elder Ouyang helped Chu Feng. Thank you for stopping me today, or else I was going to follow in Li's footsteps. At that moment, Elder Wang had a burst of lingering fear. Both of his hands were even trembling a bit. After a while he got himself together and kept on thanking Ouyang. He remembered something a few years ago. An inner court elder had some conflicts with an inner court disciple, and that inner court elder was called Li. Normally, the inner court disciples were still young, so it was not like there were none who did things rashly like Chu Feng. So, there were still quite a few conflicts between them and the elders. But, after all, disciples were disciples. If they offended an elder, most of the time they had it coming. That disciple received quite a bit of Elder Li's beatings, and at that time, everyone felt that the disciple was dead. After all, he was still young and it was nothing good when he offended an elder that had high power in the inner court. But, only until the disciple shocked everyone by becoming a core disciple in a short period of time, people discovered that the disciple was a rare cultivating genius. The thing that made people even more shocked was that 1 year after the disciple became an inner court disciple, when Li was on his road home, he was decapitated by someone and died under the martial skills of the Azure Dragon School. Although the murderer was still not found today, in reality, many people could have guessed who that murderer was. It was the disciple that had conflicts with Li. His name was Lung Wuzue and currently one of the strongest within the core disciples but the only person to have the spirit power. Ho, I won't hide it from you. According to my observations, the current Chu Feng is a lot stronger than the Lung Wuzue before. In the future, he would certainly have big achievements. But the most important thing is that he is ruthless enough. Ouyang smiled and said. After hearing those words, Elder Wang's face, which just turned to a better color, instantly became pale again without a single trace of blood. He couldn't say anything at the moment and deeply thought. Okay, the things has passed and I'm sure he won't create any troubles for you in the future. But, I can't say that for Jian Fengyi. Ouyang lightly smiled, walked towards the window, looked downwards at the cultivation formation and said, "This cultivation formation is a good thing for training one's mind and body. It has extremely strict requirements for physical strength and perseverance, and I wonder how long Chu Feng can go on with this. From what I know, the best result from the core disciples seems to be 6 hours. Chu Feng's current strength is a bit too weak, so I'm guessing 1 hour would be his limit, and even that would be fairly good." Seeing that, Elder Wang took a guess. After some consideration, Ouyang did not refute it. He even felt that with Chu Feng's strength, it could be called a miracle to pass 1 hour. After all, within the spirit realm, no one could stay in the cultivation formation for over an hour. Chapter 69, Creating Legends Again. The Azure Dragon School core zone was the area in which the core elders and the core disciples lived in. That place was the forbidden area for inner court elders and disciples. But, there was a forbidden area that even forbidden core elders and core disciples. It was a large palace. Although it was huge, it was not luxurious. Rather, it had the airs of ancientness and even some mysteriousness. That place was the living quarters for the only world spiritist of the Azure Dragon School, the guest elder, Zhuge Liuyun. In the main hall, Zhuge Liuyun was sitting on an old stone stool. He still had the white cloak that was full of symbols and it still covered his entire body. The only thing remaining was his pair of deep eyes. In front of him, a male was half-kneeled on the ground. It was a core disciple. He was under 20 years old, but his body emitted calmness and experience that did not belong to that age. That person was the only person within the core disciples that had the spirit power, Lung Wuzue. "Wuzue, how many years have you been following me for?" The deep voice came from Zhuge's white cloak. "Up to today, it has been exactly 3 years." Lung Wuzue respectfully replied. "So much time has passed without even one knowing. Time really does pass fast. You've served me in these years and your performance is decently satisfactory. Today, I will give you the last mission. As long as you finish it beautifully, I will officially accept you as my disciple and pass the spirit formation technique down to you." "Master, what mission is it? Even if I go through hot water or walk on fire, I will not refuse it." Knowing that Zhuge was going to officially accept him as his disciple, Lung Wuzue was incomparably happy. "Find a person for me," Zhuge said. "Which person do you want to find?" Lung Wuzue asked. "A young man around 15 years old but can use the third style of the 3 thunder styles. He is the same as you as he also has the spirit power. He has also seen me once but I don't know what his name is nor do I know if he really is a disciple of our Azure Dragon School. A young man who has spirit power and also can use the third style of the 3 thunder styles." At that instant, Lung Wezui's face changed slightly and he couldn't help but say, "Without a doubt, there is no one like that within the core disciples. That's why I want you to go and find him. No matter if he is an inner court disciple or not an Azure Dragon School disciple, find him for me. As long as you find him, you can officially become my disciple. I trust that this won't be too hard for you." In the journey in the tomb, I exchanged a few blows with the head of the Thousand Wind School and I suffered some injuries. From now on, I will close myself behind doors for a while. I hope when I come out you would have already found that young man. I will do my best. Leave. As you wish." After respectfully replying, Lung Wuzue walked out of the palace. But, at that instant, his face was a bit ugly and even slightly cold. "Junior Lung, what did Elder Zhuge need you for?" "Yeah, Junior Lung. Is it another mission?" Outside of the palace, 2 core disciples walked over. One was male, one was female. The male was called Jiao Le and the female was called Liu Bing. Although they were older than Lung Wuzue and entered the inner court earlier, they were 2 of Lung Wuzue's trusted aides. "Go to the inner court and check if there's a young man that cultivated the third style of the 3 thunder styles. If you find him, secretly eliminate him. Do not let anyone know that he was killed by you. Not even Zhuge Liuyun can know." Lung Wuzue coldly said. We will do that right now. Jiao Le and Liu Bing did not hesitate. After responding, they quickly left. Lung Wuzue turned his head and looked at the palace that Zhuge was in. His slightly narrowed eyes were emitting a cold gaze. Old guy, I've sold my life to you for 3 whole years, yet you want to accept another person as your disciple. Since you're treating me so heartlessly, don't blame me for being unrighteous. Don't even think of taking others as your disciple. No one in the inner court knew about what happened in the core zone. But the amount of people that gathered outside of the martial skill building got more and more. They were all attracted to the dark green house on top of the tall stage. Especially the elders of the martial skill building. All of them had tight faces and they didn't move their gaze away from the cultivation formation. It was because Chu Feng had entered the cultivation formation for a whole 6 hours. Manager, nothing happened to Chu Feng, right? It has been 6 hours, and even if it was you, some elders started to worry about Chu Feng. No. If Chu Feng fainted because of lack of strength in the cultivation formation, the formation would instantly stop working. But currently, the cultivation formation is still in progress and the power is even stronger than before. This means that Chu Feng is still enduring, so at least nothing happened to him. Ouyang shook his head, but surprise flickered within his gaze. 6 hours. Even if it was him, with his current cultivation, he could only last for 6 hours in the cultivation formation at most. After all, it was the cultivation formation laid by Zhuge who was barely weaker than the head of the school. However, Chu Feng, with the cultivation of the 7th level, endured for 6 hours in the cultivation formation. It exceeded the limits of the core disciples and he was still persisting with it. That really made Ouyang feel admiration. After 8 hours in the cultivation formation, the admiration turned into shock. When Chu Feng left the cultivation formation by choice, everyone saw that Chu Feng was extremely relaxed. He even had an extremely happy smile on his face, and it even made people suspect whether he really was in the cultivation formation for 8 hours. They suspected if the cultivation formation really had unendurable pressure like the legends. Because of that, after Chu Feng came out, someone firmly walked into the cultivation formation and wanted to investigate to the end. But the attempt by that person let people know that the cultivation formation was absolutely as it was rumored to be. The disciple that went in only stayed in for a short while before losing consciousness, and he was carried out by an elder of the martial skill building. Heavens, that means that Chu Feng really stayed in the cultivation formation for 8 hours and he was not affected at all? That's too scary. Is he still human? It seems that a monster appeared in the inner court. Seeing the disciple that had white foam coming out of his mouth and showing the whites of his eyes while being carried by the elder, everyone endlessly yelled in surprise. Of course, they were not yelling for that disciple, they were yelling for Chu Feng who walked out earlier. After that, without a doubt, Chu Feng created another legend in the inner court. But Chu Feng did not mind things like that. The reason why he was happy was because he mastered the early stage of the Imperial Sky technique. Although it was only the early stage, the wind-like speed satisfied Chu Feng. At least, with the Imperial Sky technique, if he couldn't win against Origin Realm experts, he could at least safely escape. It was his trump card in running for his life. Time passed and within a blink, the day of the core disciple exam arrived. The night before the exam, Su Mai that disappeared for a few days came to his door. Chapter 70, Jealousy. On the sky, the round moon was hung up high. On the ground, there was a male and a female. On the stone path in the dark and quiet night, Chu Feng and Su Mai were walking shoulder to shoulder. Borrowing the bright moonlight, Chu Feng would occasionally and secretly peek at Su Mai who was next to him. He couldn't help but hiddenly sigh. That girl was quite pretty. Her long and thin eyebrows, water-like eyes, tall and beautiful nose, pink and soft lips, perfect curve of the convex in front of her chest, and in addition, her snow-like white skin. It really made people's heart bump loudly. Even if it was said that she was a descended fairy, it would be correct. As he was absorbed into looking, Chu Feng couldn't endure it and opened his arms. He extended his dirty hand towards Su Mai. So, a painful cry rang out again. Ah tilde tilde tilde. Damn it, girl. Isn't it just a hug? No need to bite so fiercely. Chu Feng looked at the 2 perfect rows of little teeth marks on his hand and painfully grimaced. Luckily, he had thick and rough skin and he could be compared to steel tendons and iron bones. Or else, Su Mai's bite really would have bit off a big chunk of his meat. It could be seen that she really dared to do that. Who let you do that? Damn scoundrel. Su Mai fiercely glared at Chu Feng then said, I hear that you stayed in the cultivation formation for 8 hours. Was that true? Millimeter. What about it? You really are a monster. Don't you know that in the cultivation formation, even core disciples could only stay there for 6 hours? You've already become a freak in the inner court right now. Is that so? It just means those guys are garbage, right? Chu Feng was not boasting. If it wasn't because he felt that he already mastered the early stage of the Imperial Sky technique and decided to waste no more time, he would have no problem staying for a few more hours in the cultivation formation. It's not that they're garbage, it's just that you're too abnormal. Su Mai curled her lips then squinted her eyes and giggled, in a while, you're going to meet all of the Wings Alliance members. Are you nervous? What's there to be nervous about? Chu Feng denied that. He originally thought that Su Mai had some good things for him since she looked for him at such a late time, but he didn't know that it was for the meeting of the Wings Alliance members. As for why, naturally, it was for tomorrow's core disciple exam. Including Chu Feng, there were only 33 members in the Wings Alliance. But, in this year's core disciple exam, there were at least 12 people joining. Those 12 people could be said to be the strongest within the Wings Alliance. It meant that the Wings Alliance in the inner court was going to have quite some changes. Not only did they need to choose a new alliance master, they also needed to plan for the exam. For this core disciple exam, not only did the Wings Alliance wait for a long time, the Sword Alliance and the World Alliance also waited for a long time. The exam was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. It would very likely be a battle between the top inner court disciples. I already know that you are inhuman and wouldn't be nervous because of them. Su Mai sweetly smiled and revealed some admiration within her eyes. Accompanied by Su Mai, Chu Feng arrived at a residence. It was where the Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance lived in and also the gathering location of the Wings Alliance. Before his eyes, all of the members of the Wings Alliance were already in the residence. As he entered the residence, Chu Feng felt countless gazes focusing on him and looking around his body. Some had surprise, some were strange, and some also contained disdain and suspicion. But, what Chu Feng first felt was the strong aura of those people. The Wings Alliance were indeed worthy of being called the Alliance of Geniuses. So it turned out that the Dragon and Tiger brothers were only at the bottom within the Wings Alliance. Within the bodies of the 31 people, Chu Feng found some familiar faces. For example, Bai Long, Bai Hu, Yi Taozi, Zhong Tingzi, Bai Tong and the others. Chu Feng had seen those people before. This is Chu Feng, right? I am the Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance, Sichu Yu. A handsome male walked towards Chu Feng. He was the one that lead all the Wings Alliance members. Sichu Yu's age was similar to Jian Fengyi's age, even his cultivation was at the 9th level of the spirit realm as well. But, his aura was a bit thicker than Jian Fengyi's. However, although he seemed polite on the surface, Chu Feng could feel that he was not as kind as he seemed. Hey! My brother is speaking to you. Did you not hear it? As Chu Feng was staring blankly, a black-faced young man who was behind Sichu Yu rushed forward. The age of the young man was close to Chu Feng's. Even if he was older, he would be no older than 2 years. With the cultivation of the 8th level of the spirit realm at that age, it was not bad. But his current attitude was extremely nasty. He pointed at Chu Feng and bellowed while his nose was blowing and his eyes glaring. Looking how he was, it really seemed like he wanted to beat Chu Feng up. Little Liang. Seeing that, Sichu Yu pulled the black-faced young man back. After that, he apologetically said to Chu Feng, "This is my brother Sichu Liang. His character is a bit violent but he's not a bad person in his heart. I do hope that you don't mind that. Don't worry, I, Chu Feng, am always very graceful." Chu Feng waved his hand without caring. You, Sichu Liang grinded his teeth from Chu Feng's actions that were full of contempt. Smoke was even going to rise from his nose, but before he lashed out, he was stopped by Sichu Yu. After that, Sichu Yu introduced all the members of the Wings Alliance to Chu Feng. Although they were quite polite on the surface, Chu Feng could feel that those people obviously disliked him. Most of the people who disliked Chu Feng were male. As for the reason, it was not hard for him to guess them. It was certainly because he was very close with Su Mai recently. After all, the gazes of the males that looked at Su Mai were not right. But other than the male members, the female members were quite friendly towards Chu Feng. However, Chu Feng did not know that the reason why they were friendly towards him was because Chu Feng's got more and more famous within the inner court. After all, females would have indescribable favorable impressions towards more outstanding males. Since all the members are here, let's get into business. Everyone, please sit. After some short chatting, Sichu Yu spoke seriously. At that instant, all of the Wings Alliance members sat a. But Chu Feng suddenly discovered a problem. In the 33 chairs in the hall, 31 of them were already sat on. There were 2 remaining positions. One of the spots was at the top, close to Sichu Yu. At that instant, Su Mai was being led to that spot by the brothers, Sichu Yu and Sichu Liang. The last spot was at the end. Logically, it wasn't anything important. After all, it was just a seat. But Chu Feng found out that the positioning of the seats had reason for them. The ones that sat at the top were strong people, the ones at the end were the less strong people such as the Dragon and Tiger brothers. Which meant that the Wings Alliance took him as useless firewood. Chu Feng, sit here. Just at that time, the young female next to the end of the seat spoke. The female was quite nice looking. On her white face, there was a pair of fox-like eyes. Her long hair scattered along her shoulders and she could be counted to be a first-class beauty. Her chest was especially impressive. The purple robe was bulging out and it was as if it was going to puff out. The most important thing was that the big-chested beauty was currently winking at Chu Feng. It was obvious that she was trying to seduce Chu Feng. Speaking of it, Chu Feng was still a male. Although he was honest, it did not mean that he would refuse the seduction of females. So, he did not think too much about that. He lightly smiled and sat on the spot at the end. Chu Feng, I've heard that you were quite fierce, previously completely stepping over the Liu Alliance. After Chu Feng sat down, the big-chested beauty actually grabbed Chu Feng's arm and the 2 round balls of softness fiercely pressed upon it. Where? That was Chu Feng's current voice in his heart. Being pressed by those 2 round balls of softness, Chu Feng only had one word to describe that feeling. Comfortable. That was the true big-chestedness. The ones from Su Mai hadn't been developed as much yet and obviously they could not be compared to hers. You, stand up. Just at that time, a fierce yell rang next to him. Raising their heads to look, Chu Feng and the big-chested female, even everyone in the hall were stunned. They saw Su Mai with one hand on her little waist and the other hand pointing at the big-chested beauty beside Chu Feng. Her little mouth was curled up and her eyes were glaring. There was visible jealousy hung on her sweet little face. Chapter 71, Quiet Down. Little Mai, the big-chested beauty seemed to be afraid of Su Mai and she didn't know what to do at that moment. I'm telling you to stand up. Su Mai aggressively bellowed. That voice scared that big-chested beauty and her little face instantly paled. She quickly stood to the side and didn't even dare to speak. Chmph. Su Mai coldly snorted and angrily shot Chu Feng a glance before sitting where the big-chested female sat before. She pointed at the spot next to Sichu Yu and said, sit there. Millimeter. The big-chested beauty did not dare to be slow and she lowered her head while she quickly walked next to Sichu Yu. Without even raising her head, she gloomily sat down. That scene widened everyone's eyes and mouths. They were all taken aback on what happened. To anyone who had eyes, they could tell that Su Mai was jealous. Jealous of who? Jealous of Chu Feng. Countless people seeked Su Mai yet no one got their hands on the number 1 beauty in the inner court. Yet, she was jealous of Chu Feng. That was an absolutely shocking thing. But carefully thinking about it, it was not that sudden. After all, the 2 of them walked very closely together recently and there were even rumors about Su Mai secretly being in love with Chu Feng. But even so, it was still impossible for everyone to accept that. On the other hand, Bai Tong and the others were quite relieved because they had personally seen more violent actions by Sumai before. However, compared to Bai Tong and the others, Sichu Yu's face was a bit unnatural. Although he was trying his best to conceal it, he still revealed some irritation. He was jealous as well. "You're quite fierce and there was no need to treat her like that, right?" Chu Feng chuckled and said. "I do what I want and what can you do about it?" Sumai fiercely glared at Chu Feng before turning her head and ignoring Chu Feng. After that little storm, the so-called meeting also officially started. First, the people that were going to participate in the core disciple exam were announced. There were 12 people, including Chu Feng, Sumai, and Sichu Yu. The other 9 people had the cultivation of the 8th level and it was not hard to pass the core disciple exam with that cultivation. So, it was basically confirmed that 12 members were going to leave the Wings Alliance. However, facing that situation, Sichu Yu had preparations done already. It was that his brother was not going to participate in this year's core disciple exam, so Sichu Liang was going to stay within the inner court. He was going to succeed as the Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance. There was one other thing. Sichu Yu suggested that after becoming core disciples, the Wings Alliance would be preserved and he didn't want everyone going their own ways. Sichu Yu sent his thoughts to the former Wings Alliance members but current core disciples that he wanted them to lead the Wings Alliance and to create a new land within the core disciples. But he was refused. So, there was a serious problem in front of their eyes. They wanted to recreate the Wings Alliance in the land of core disciples with their group. With the recreation of the Wings Alliance, there was a need to choose a new Alliance Master and that was the current discussion. Sichu Yu, is there even any need for discussion? Since the former seniors are unwilling to lead us, the seat of the Alliance Master would naturally be sat by you. That's right. Within the Wings Alliance today, who other than you has the ability to take that spot? The various members all recommended Sichu Yu to continue being the Alliance Master. Everyone here are the dragon within men and I'm sure no one is willing to live under someone else's charity. So, it's better to be a bit more fair. Everyone. There's no need to keep on choosing me and you can speak your real thoughts. Sichu Yu faked evasion but anyone could tell that he was still very happy. Happy that everyone chose him to continue being the Alliance Master. Seeing Sichu Yu, Chu Feng gave him an evaluation of one word. Hypocrite. Thus, he didn't bother listening what they said and he currently focused his attention on Sumai. She hadn't talked to Chu Feng in quite a while. Her hands were supporting her chin with her head tilted upwards. No one knew where she was looking, but it was certain that she did not pay attention on what Sichu Yu and the others were saying. Oi, are you angry? Chu Feng went over and asked while chuckling. Who's angry? Angry at who? Who's worth it for me to be angry on? Sumai resentfully shot Chu Feng a glance. If you're not angry what you are doing? Chu Feng said suspiciously. I'm seriously listening to Sichu Yu's words. Sumai grumbled. That's fine. Could you say what Sichu Yu just said? Chu Feng laughed a bit. He said, Sumai was a bit at a loss. She was not listening so how could she know what Sichu Yu was saying? When she turned her head and looked at Chu Feng's face that was brimming with a spoiled smile, she knew that she got tricked by Chu Feng. She angrily bit her lips and she really wanted to go and bite Chu Feng. Okay, don't be angry. How about I tell you a story? Chu Feng said amusingly. What story? If you want you can tell it. Sumai curled her lips but still put on a look of listening respectfully. 3 little white rabbits picked a mushroom. The 2 big ones told the small one to get some wild vegetables to eat. The little one said, I'm not going. If I go, you 2 will eat my mushroom. The 2 said, we won't. So don't worry and go. So the little rabbit went tilde. But after a long while, the little white rabbit didn't return. After some discussion, the 2 of them decided that there was no need to wait and they were going to eat the mushroom. But just at that time, the little white rabbit suddenly jumped out from the nearby bushes and angrily said, see, I knew that you 2 were going to eat my mushroom. Ha ha ha, so the little white rabbit never left that place? What do you think? Ha ha, he didn't. That's too cute and pretty funny. Sumai laughed from Chu Feng's story and the beautiful laugh was very pleasant to listen to. But, The time in which it rang out was obviously not the right time, and it already attracted everyone's attention. Here, I'll tell you another. Seeing that Su Mai finally smiled, Chu Feng also got enthusiastic. He showed his arms by pulling up his sleeves, and he prepared to show his skill again. The actions of the two displeased Sichu Yu. Seeing that the one he liked was laughing in front of someone else yet not caring what he said, he was quite stuffed with panic. Bang just at that time, Sichu Liang suddenly slammed the table, stepped up, pointed at Chu Feng and said, "My brother is speaking right now, so quiet down." Hearing those words, Chu Feng's expression did not change. He slowly stood up and calmly walked in front of Sichu Liang. Suddenly, Chu Feng waved his hand, and with a bang, a clear slap fiercely landed on Sichu Liang's face. The strong strength directly flipped Sichu Liang to the ground. He opened his mouth, and along a mouthful of blood, 3 front teeth came out as well. That scene completely scared the crowd there. Chu Feng directly hit a person, and the person he hit was the future Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance and also Sichu Yu's younger brother. His nerves were a bit too big. Chu Feng did not care in the slightest while facing the shocked gazes of the crowd. He pointed at Sichu Liang, who was on the ground, and fiercely said, "You quiet down when I'm talking." Chapter 72, Oppressive Sichu Yu. "I'll kill you." Sichu Liang looked at the bloodstain and the 3 front teeth on the ground, and he was enraged. Instantly, he grasped onto insanity and exploded his strength of the 8th level of the spirit realm. The aura engulfed like a hurricane as he rushed towards Chu Feng. Just as Sichu Liang rushed in front of Chu Feng and prepared to attack him, Chu Feng raised his leg and kicked him, and he flew through the air. That time, the strength that Chu Feng used was obviously stronger than before. The large power shattered the chair next to Sichu Liang, and after flying a few meters through the air, he fiercely crashed on the wall. This guy is extremely strong. At that instant, many Wings Alliance members who only saw Chu Feng for the first time were all shocked. Clearly, he was only at the 7th level of the spirit realm, yet he completely crushed Sichu Liang, who was at the 8th level of the spirit realm. That power deterred the crowd. Some people that wanted to attack Chu Feng just now blew away that thought. Especially when they heard certain rumors about Chu Feng recently. For the first time, they recognized that he might be a character that was very troubling. "Chu Feng, you went too far. The Wings Alliance members are like a family. What is the meaning of treating Sichu Liang like this?" Sichu Yu angrily said. Seeing his younger brother being humiliated in front of everyone, raging flames were already lit in his heart. If it wasn't for his own status, he would have attacked Chu Feng already. "Family? Did he see me as a family? Do you see me as a family? Let me tell you this. Don't try to play these tricks in front of me. Don't think that we're a family just because you said you are. Whoever I, Chu Feng, want to hit, I will hit regardless who they are." Chu Feng coldly said. "Who you want to hit, you hit. I will see how much skill you have today being that arrogant." As he talked, Sichu Yu wanted to attack, and Chu Feng also wanted to give it a try. "Stop." Just at that time, Su Mai strictly yelled, walked in front of them, then said, "What are you guys doing? Infighting? Tomorrow is the day of the exam, yet you are fighting here. Do you want to go to tomorrow's exam in injuries? Little Mai, you saw everything before. It's not that I want to attack him, it's just that Sichu Yu wanted to explain. "I saw it all. Sichu Liang was in the wrong just now." The thing that was completely unexpected was Su Mai leaning towards Chu Feng with no hesitation. It was even so direct. Hearing Su Mai's words, Sichu Yu was as if he heard the sound of his heart shattering. Finally, he could not control himself. He didn't say any more to Su Mai, and he pointed at Chu Feng, then said, "Chu Feng, as a man, don't stand behind a woman. Don't you like to fight? Today, I'll keep you accompanied to the end." "That's fine. You think I would be scared of you?" Chu Feng grabbed Su Mai's wrist and pulled her behind him. "You two stop." Seeing that, Su Mai was a bit angry, but no matter what, she could not throw Chu Feng's hands off. When a wave of spiritual energy entered her body, it relaxed Su Mai's body. "Chu Feng, you," feeling the pressure engulfing her entire body, Su Mai was endlessly shocked. It was because the pressure simply did not belong to the spirit realm. It was comparable to experts of the origin realm. Little my, don't worry. As the Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance, I look over the general situation with most importance. Today, exchanging blows with Chu Feng, I will not use any martial skills. Sichu Yu vowed solemnly. Oh, you're going easy on me. Chu Feng disdainfully smiled. It's not that I'm going easy on you. It's just that I don't want to injure you. After all, you are the person that was recommended by Elder Su Ru and Elder Ouyang. Even if I go easy, it's only giving face to Elder Su Ru and Elder Ouyang. Sichu Yu said. Quite a tone you have there. I would really want to see who's going easy on who. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. Chu Feng didn't speak any more rubbish and went straight to attacking. With an extremely fast speed, he arrived in front of Sichu Yu within a blink of an eye. Quickly spinning his body, a beautiful whip-like leg lashed out. HMPH. Facing Chu Feng's approaching attack, Sichu Yu only coldly snorted and didn't even put Chu Feng's attack in his eyes. He slightly raised his right arm and planned to easily block Chu Feng's attack. However, he paid a painful price. Asterisk bang asterisk. When the strike landed, it was as if Sichu Yu's right arm took the force of 300,000 catties. At the same time in which the pain was sent from his arm, a huge force was bringing him up. Seeing that, he hurriedly operated the mysterious technique, but it was too late. The strong force made his entire body fly in the air. But, after all, Sichu Yu was an expert of the 9th level of the spirit realm and known as the strongest disciple in the inner court. Naturally, he had some methods. His body revolved in mid-air and a beautiful flip cancelled the force on his body as he stably landed on the ground. Take this. But just as he raised his head, Chu Feng was already in front of him. At that time, a huge fist was approaching his face. Asterisk pew asterisk. Everything happened too fast and Sichu Yu had no way of dodging it. He felt a fiery pain on his face and his entire body flew away once again. That time, he ferociously crashed on the ground, and after rolling 2 times he stabilized himself. Lords, Chu Feng actually. Chu Feng's speed was too fast. His attacks were like lightning and flint and many people didn't even see what happened. When they did, they discovered that Sichu Yu was like a watermelon as he rolled to the side. When he stood back up, his face was slightly swelled and it seemed that he took quite a bit. Why did this happen? How is his speed and strength exceeding mine? He is clearly only at the 7th level of the spirit realm. Is he truly a monster? Sichu Yu was endlessly shocked and he really underestimated Chu Feng. He never would have thought that Chu Feng would have such strong power. So strong that when they fought purely with physical strength, he had no way of even matching 2 rounds with Chu Feng. Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance. You are merely so. Chu Feng clapped his hands and hiddenly laughed in his heart. Sichu Yu was simply looking to die if they were fighting based on physical strength. Chu Feng, cultivation requires savageness. The reason why you won over me is because I didn't use any martial skills. If I used the martial skills, with your current cultivation, you would have no chance of beating me. Sichu Yu bitterly said. He was beaten, and being beaten so badly in front of his members and in front of the one he liked really made him impossible to accept that. So, he had to get back some face. Also, he knew that Chu Feng only entered the inner court for a short while. So, he thought that Chu Feng was only strong in his physical body. If he used martial skills, he could completely pressure Chu Feng. Oh, since you said that, I would like to experience the you that uses martial skills and see what's so impressive about it. Chu Feng waved his hands towards Sichu Yu, indicating him to go over and try. Chapter 73, Reminder. I'll satisfy you. Seeing that, Sichu Yu did not speak anymore and with a bellow, the entire hall couldn't help but shake. A boundless aura surged out from his body, and at that instant, his body had a materialistic change. His arms and legs instantly thickened to twice its size and it almost bursted the purple robe on his body. Looking past the clothes, his chunks of healthy muscles could be clearly seen. As for the color of his skin, he became golden. Even his hair became golden. Both of his eyes became red and his breathing also became rough with power. The current Situ Yu did not look like the warm and refined Alliance Master of the Wings Alliance. He was simply a golden beast. Especially, the aura that was emitted from his body had the deterrent feeling of fierce beasts. Rank 4 Strengthening Skill, Transformation of the Golden Lion. I never would have thought that the Alliance Master cultivated the transformation of the Golden Lion to this stage. It seems like Chu Feng would lose without a doubt this time. That's right. The transformation of the Golden Lion is a rank 4 strengthening martial skill. After cultivating to the stage that the Alliance Master has, neither sword nor spear can harm him and neither water nor fire can invade him. It's just like an indestructible body. It wouldn't matter how much stronger Chu Feng's physical body is, he would absolutely not be able to harm the Alliance Master in the slightest. He will only get beaten up. Seeing Situ Yu's change, some male Wings Alliance members felt that Chu Feng was certainly going to be defeated. They couldn't help but feel refreshed because they really did not like Chu Feng's aggressiveness and arrogance. But the more important thing was that they didn't like how Chu Feng and Su Mai were that close. As for the female members, they felt the strong areas of Chu Feng and they sighed in admiration towards his strength. But, when Situ Yu displayed that skill, they also felt that Chu Feng would not have much luck. Only Su Mai, Bai Tong, the dragon and tiger brothers, and the others remained silent. They knew that Chu Feng had an even stronger skill. Chu Feng, I can let you go if you admit defeat now. Or else, if I attack in this state, I cannot guarantee that I won't harm you. Situ Yu spoke and at that instant, his voice was thick and powerful like the roar of a fierce beast. It was no longer the voice of a human and more or less, it was a bit scary. Since you're that confident, hurry up and come. I would really like to see how you would harm me. Chu Feng smiled without caring much. Since you want to be injured that much, I'll grant you wish. After all, I don't want to disappoint you. Situ Yu moved. Every step he took, the ground in which his feet landed on would crack. He madly rushed and jumped, shaking the entire hall, and it was like an earthquake. Looking at Situ Yu, who was getting closer and closer, Chu Feng smiled strangely and used the first thunder style. He broke open the door and ran out. Chmph. You want to run, but can you? Seeing that escaping Chu Feng, Situ Yu even thought that Chu Feng was afraid of him. He arrogantly laughed and chased after him. As for Su Mai and the others, they quickly followed and rushed out closely. But just as they stepped out of the residence, everyone couldn't help but be at a loss. Chu Feng did not escape. Instead, he was standing in a wide area outside of the residence, extended both of his hands and did a disdainful gesture towards Situ Yu. You're looking to die. Situ Yu bellowed, and he was like a rank 9 fierce beast. Emitting the terrifying aura, he rushed towards Chu Feng once again. *BZZ**. But just at that time, with a thought from Chu Feng, both of his eyes had traces of lightning. Following that, some pili-pala sounds could be heard and it started to endlessly exploded from his body. His entire body was enveloped by the white lightning and it was as if he became a man of lightning. *rumble rumble*. After that, Chu Feng raised his arm up high and the lighting on his body shot out from all directions. The destructive power even shattered the slabs under his feet into dust. Several deep holes kept on appearing around Chu Feng. This scary aura, what is this? How can he display such a terrifying martial skill? At that instant, everyone endlessly cried in surprise. It was the first time that they saw such a frightening skill. No matter if it was from the might or from the aura, it completely exceeded Situ Yu's transformation of the Golden Lion. *whoosh*. Just at that instant, Chu Feng slightly stretched his finger forward. A ray of lightning explosively shot out and almost at the same time that people reacted to that, the lighting already landed on Situ Yu's chest. *bang*. *tilde*. A painful cry rang out and Situ Yu got blasted dozens of meters back. When his body landed, he returned to normal but his face was filled with pain. Almost at the same time, the lightning on Chu Feng's body instantly disappeared. Other than the holes on the ground, there was not a single trace left. It was as if the lightning on his body never appeared. Chu Feng, are you crazy? You used such a skill towards my brother. Do you want to kill him? At that instant, Sichu Liang got extremely frightened. As he loudly cursed, he ran towards Sichu Yu and there were even tears on the corners of his eyes. The might that Chu Feng exploded out before was really too terrifying. At least, within the spirit realm, he had never seen anything as strong as that. Being hit by such an overwhelming skill, he was very worried that Sichu Yu got killed by Chu Feng's strike. "Little Liang, I'm fine." But just at that time, Sichu Yu slowly stood up. He looked at his chest first, then after that, he helplessly sighed and clasped his hand together while saying in a shameful tone, "Chu Feng, thank you for holding back. My skill cannot match yours. I lose." Who tilde? With Sichu Yu's words, everyone couldn't help but take in a breath of cool air. They could hear the meanings behind his words. It was clear that Chu Feng held back or else Sichu Yu would not be so healthy at that moment. "No need to be polite. I spared your little life because I'm giving Su my face. Little Mai, let's go. I'll accompany you back." Chu Feng waved towards Su Mai then shook his sleeve and left. Su Mai also quickly went over and the Wings Alliance were left behind. Looking at the backs of the two people, the faces of the Wings Alliance members were filled with complicated expressions. Their emotions couldn't help but roll back and forth. Today, Chu Feng really left them a deep impression. They finally understood why Su Ru and Ouyang both recommended Chu Feng to be invited to the Wings Alliance. They also finally knew why Chu Feng acted so arrogantly. It was because he had that qualification and he was even more monstrous than the rumors. Before, they all felt that they were cultivating geniuses. But after today, they knew in front of Chu Feng, they did not deserve to be called that. "Chu Feng, you can't go on like this." Outside of Su Mai's residence, she said seriously. "What do you mean?" Chu Feng was a bit confused. Chapter 74, Examination. Even if you have the spirit power, you can't cultivate like this. Do you not know in the journey of cultivating, it emphasizes the cycle of gradual progress? If you're breaking through so quickly, it will cause difficulties for your success in the future. If I wanted to, with my family's wealth, it was completely possible for me to break into the 9th level of the spirit realm when I was 12 years old. Do you know why I'm only at the 8th level of the spirit realm at the age of 14? That's because by using cultivation resources to break through, it breaks the rules of martial cultivation. At the same time that it brings power, it also burdens the body and it will lower one's comprehension in the future. Even if you can become an expert of the 9th level in a short amount of time, what the future brings is the predicament of never being able to break through into the origin realm. Do you understand what I'm saying? Su Mai's mood was a bit emotional, but it could be seen that she really was worried for Chu Feng. Seeing Su Mai like that, Chu Feng was secretly happy yet his heart ached. Naturally, he knew that the road of martial cultivation required gradual progress and one could not seek instant benefits. However, that only applied to normal people, and obviously, Chu Feng could not be seen as a normal person. Chu Feng understood his body the most. His body was not burdened because of his quick improvement. Instead, it got stronger and stronger. But, he could not say the truth to Su Mai because he did not know how to explain his body. He could not say that not only did he have the spirit power, he even had a special body and he was hiding a lump of divine lightning in his dantian, right? Chu Feng would not easily tell anyone that secret. If he could, he would hide it for his entire life. "I understand and I'll pay attention." Not knowing how to explain, Chu Feng could only smile and say briefly, "Do your best then. I don't wish that you destroy your good future because of some short-term benefits." Seeing that smiling Chu Feng, Su Mai was a bit angry and she turned around then entered her own residence. Looking at Su Mai's back, Chu Feng felt a wave of warmth in his heart. He had to say that he was blessed to have a girl that cared for him that much. Morning on the next day. The sky just started to get bright and Chu Feng already risen from his bed. Today was the day of the core disciple exam. The core disciples. The important targets of development of the Azure Dragon School and also the main force of the Azure Dragon School. Their position compared to the inner court disciples was like the sky and the earth. First of all, the core disciples got to enjoy the best cultivating resources of the Azure Dragon School. Second of all, their families received the protection of the Azure Dragon School. To those who dared to touch the families of the Azure Dragon School core disciples, it meant that they were going against the Azure Dragon School. Also, not all core disciples were like Zhu Jiyuan. In reality, many core disciples were very strong and most of them stepped into the origin realm. They were extremely talented people and some of the strength of the core disciples could be rivaled with core elders. For example, Su Ru. If it wasn't because she chose to be an inner court elder, she would have been a core disciple. Which also meant, within the core disciples, it was possible that there were people as strong as Su Ru. So, compared to the inner court, the core zone was the place where Chu Feng wanted to go the most. There were more challenges there and he enjoyed that kind of life. It was a kind of life that forced him to become strong. The location of the core disciple exam was also a huge underground palace. But, the size of the underground palace was a lot larger than the one in the inner court disciple exam. The mechanisms within were a lot more dangerous as well. The most important thing was that not a single dust of the mechanisms in the inner court disciple exam changed. On the other hand, the core disciple exam mechanisms changed almost every year. There were hundreds of tricks and no one knew what the mechanisms this year would be like. Of course, as long as you have absolute power, you could pass even if there were harder mechanisms. At that instant, the 12 Wings Alliance members entered the huge underground palace. Oh! This time, the Wings Alliance is moving in quite a big scale. There are so many people participating. There are only 12 people. How can this be counted as a big scale? There are only 33 members in the Wings Alliance. This time, it could be said that they are using almost half of their members. Is that not a big scale? That's true. Ha ha ha. When Chu Feng and the other Wings Alliance members entered the main underground palace hall, they heard mocking voices. Focusing their gazes, from nearby, there were two groups of people. One group was the Sword Alliance and the other was the World Alliance. Chu Feng saw the Sword Alliance members and they sent 30 people out this time. Other than Jian Fengyi, the only person in the 9th level of the spirit realm, there were 3 people in the 8th level and the rest were only in the 7th level. The World Alliance also had 30 people. One of them was in the 9th level, 2 were in the 8th level and the rest were in the 7th. The person that had the strength of the 9th level, the young man who was mocking the Wings Alliance with Jian Fengyi, was obviously the Alliance Master of the World Alliance. Why are the World Alliance together with the Sword Alliance? Seeing the harmonious World Alliance and Sword Alliance, some of the Wings Alliance members felt that something was off. No need to worry about them. This core disciple exam is different than the inner court disciple exam. What it relies on is personal strength. Look at those entrances. They are not connected and every person could only enter one of them. Which means the stages inside are completed by a single person. But, I have to remind you guys that after walking out of the underground palace, it does not mean that the exam is passed. After walking out, we will enter a flower garden. The flower garden contains many spiritual medicines and it counts as the reward for passing the underground palace. As for how many one can get will depend on your own power. The most important thing is that the exam has a limit of 4 hours. Which also means after entering the underground palace, we must walk out of the flower garden within 4 hours or else you would fail the exam. Sichu you did not care about the people from the World Alliance or the Sword Alliance. He was explaining the important points of the core disciple exam to Chu Feng and the others. Although the Wings Alliance did not have the numbers advantage over the World Alliance or the Sword Alliance, on the topic of strength, the Wings Alliance had absolute superiority. Especially when they had a monster like Chu Feng, they did not need to worry about anything. So, they were not afraid of the Sword Alliance and the World Alliance. They were only worried if they could become core disciples or not. If they failed the exam, they would return to the inner court to continue cultivation. To the Wings Alliance, that was a type of humiliation and they were determined to not let that happen. Chu Feng, I hear my sister say that the flower garden was created by the founder of the Azure Dragon School, so that's why it's called the Azure Dragon Flower Garden. Within the Azure Dragon Flower Garden, there's a type of flower called the 7-colored flower. The 7-colored flower has 7 types of colors and it's extremely beautiful. But, they are very rarely seen and they're a lot more precious than spiritual medicine. Not every person has a chance to see it, but I really want to have a look. As Su Mai spoke to Chu Feng, her eyes were filled with yearning. "Don't worry, I'll certainly let you see them." Chu Feng smiled and said, "Don't speak nonsense. The Azure Dragon Flower Garden is extremely big and the 7-colored flower are extremely rare. They are not that easily found and you can only depend on luck." Su Mai did not believe Chu Feng's words. Chu Feng only lightly smiled and did not explain anything. On the other hand, while he passed by Jian Fengyi, he suddenly stopped and said to him, "Don't let me see you in the Azure Dragon Flower Garden or else I will beat you up so badly that even your mother won't be able to recognize you." After speaking those words, without even giving a chance for Jian Fengyi to refute, he quickly walked away with Su Mai as he terribly angered Jian Fengyi. Chapter 75, A Similar Genius. "Jian Fengyi, who's that guy that dared to speak to you like that?" Looking at Chu Feng's back, which was free and easy, the Alliance Master of the World Alliance was full of shock. He basically recognized all the experts of the Wings Alliance, but he never even seen Chu Feng before. Also, the only person that would dare to speak to Jian Fengyi like that could only be Sichu Yu. So, Chu Feng's actions shocked him quite a bit. A brat that doesn't want to live. I will let him pay the price. Jian Fengyi's tone was extremely dark and cold. It could be seen that he really hated Chu Feng down to the bone. Haha, of course. This time, no one from the Wings Alliance should even think of passing this exam. After we get to the Azure Dragon Flower Garden, you can teach that boy a lesson however you wish. Oh, not Su Mai though. I'll take care of her. Although I can't do much to her, grabbing onto chances, I can still take tiny advantages. The Alliance Master of the World Alliance shamelessly laughed. Then he went next to Jian Fengyi's ears and quietly asked, "Jian Fengyi, are you sure that the mechanism decoding map is correct? It better not be wrong and harm my group of brothers." "Don't worry, it is absolutely correct. As long as you follow the methods of the mechanism map, I guarantee that all of them will safely pass the stage. You just need to remind them to quickly pass it. This time, we have to completely surround the Wings Alliance members in the Azure Dragon Flower Garden. Not a single one of them can pass the exam," Jian Fengyi said with confidence. "Of course. The people from the Wings Alliance think that they're geniuses and this time, we'll make them lose all their faces. I can die from excitement just by thinking of the reactions when the news of the Wings Alliance members' exam failure gets spread throughout the inner court." The Alliance Master of the World Alliance happily laughed loudly. "HMPH geniuses? They're just idiots that believe themselves to be infallible. All the Wings Alliance members that were so arrogant in the inner court, when they got to the core zone, weren't they just all defeated by that person?" Jian Fengyi disdainfully said. "You're saying the #1 disciple in our Azure Dragon School, Gong Luyun? Who else other than him?" "That's correct. Gong Luyun is way too powerful. I hear that he's going to enter the profound realm soon. I wonder if it's true or false." Mentioning Gong Luyun, admiration surged onto the face of the Alliance Master of the World Alliance. "Yeah, I hear that he's the genius that appeared after Zhong Tianyi. He's only 20 years old today, and if he really enters the profound realm, he would have unlimited achievements in the future. The position of the head of school could only belong to him." Jian Fengyi also endlessly admired him. "Sorry for the wait." Just at that time, a warm and clear voice rang out. Su Ru led a group of elders and solemnly went on the stage. When Su Ru appeared, the people from all three powers couldn't help but quiet down. They knew Su Ru's appearance was as beautiful like a fox and she was also extremely gentle to others, but her methods were feared by many people. At least within the inner court, no one dared to offend her. After Su Ru appeared, she explained the exam rules in detail. They were pretty much exactly the same as what Sichu Yu said. After explaining the rules, several entrances slowly opened and Chu Feng and the others rushed into them instantly. Hihi, was this made just for me to test the Imperial Sky technique? At that instant, Chu Feng looked at the mechanisms. They were iron blades sticking out and there were only a few safe areas that could be landed on. His heart was filled with joy. Who tilde asterisk. Suddenly, strong wind was revolving under his feet. The tip of his toes lightly tapped and with a bang, his entire body was like an arrow as he ran with flying speed. He was actually stepping on the iron blades to walk. Within a blink, He entered deep into the tunnel and disappeared. The Imperial Sky Technique, rated as a rank 7 martial skill. Who cared that Chu Feng only mastered the early stage? His speed completely exceeded everyone's imagination. If it was about the leg power, perhaps even experts of the Origin Realm could not be compared with Chu Feng. Using the speed of the Imperial Sky Technique, Chu Feng rushed through the underground palace like the wind. He didn't even decipher the mechanisms, yet he passed them all. The so-called core disciple exam was just like a child's play. After a short moment, Chu Feng already stepped outside of the underground palace, and the scene displayed in front of him was the so-called Azure Dragon Flower Garden. The emerald green grass was under his feet, and there were all sorts of strange flowers and weird grasses in front of him. The lively cry of birds endlessly rang next to his ear, and suddenly, a burst of light wind passed him and the fragrant smell leaped towards his nose. All around him were birdsongs and fragrant flowers. It was just like a real, otherworldly garden. There are quite a few spiritual medicines here. But other than the top-quality spiritual medicine, the spiritual bead, nothing else has too much meaning to me. The first thing that Chu Feng did was spread out his spirit power and felt the environment of his surroundings in detail. He discovered that the Azure Dragon Flower Garden was really big and there were indeed many spiritual medicines planted there. But Chu Feng did not pick them. His body moved and he went deeper into the flower garden. Other than the spiritual bead, he was not interested in other spiritual medicines at all. What he wanted to find was the 7-colored flower. Elder Su Ru, why hasn't Chu Feng moved yet? Does he want to give up on this exam? Within the observation room in the underground palace, Su Ru and some elders were gathered there. At that place, although they were not able to see what was happening in every single tunnel, they could tell changes in the mechanisms. The exam already started, but in Chu Feng's tunnel, the mechanisms hadn't even been touched yet, and that confused many people. Leave. Follow me and have a look. Su Ru, who had very good impressions of Chu Feng, slightly frowned. She pushed the door open and walked out. The other elders also quickly followed her. But when they opened Chu Feng's tunnel, they were all shocked. They discovered that the mechanisms in the tunnel were completely untouched, yet Chu Feng was not there. Facing that scene, almost everyone could guess what happened. After all, when one's strength reached a certain point and grasped superb techniques, they could directly pass the underground palace without damaging the mechanisms. But for that to happen, one had to be at least in the Origin Realm. However, Chu Feng was only at the 7th level of the Spirit Realm. So, seeing that situation happening on Chu Feng, of course they were endlessly astonished. This guy is really comparable to him back in the days. As she was shocked, Su Ru slowly closed her eyes. She suddenly thought of the genius many years ago. The person who created the Wings Alliance and swept the strong in the core zone. Reaching the profound realm at the age of 16 and becoming the #1 disciple in the Azure Dragon School. The Chu Feng today was really similar to him back at that time. In Su Ru's eyes, only people like them could be called a real genius.